So let's start with the rapid fire round. The first one is, at what age do you want to retire?
64.
How long does it take you to get ready in the mornings?
25 minutes.
Most embarrassing moment of your life?
Didn't have one.
Favorite color?
Blue.
What time of day are you most inspired?
In the morning.
How many hours of sleep can you survive on?
I need 7 to 8 hours.
Fill in the blank. An upcoming marketing trend is blank.
Is AI.
The city in which the best kiss of your life happened?
Amsterdam.
Pick one, Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Hard one.
The biggest mistake of your career?
I didn't make much mistakes.
How do you relax?
Sporting.
How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
4, I guess.
A habit of yours that you don't like?
Postponing things.
The most valuable skill you've learned in life?
Being optimistic.
Your favorite Netflix show?
I think Casa de Papel.
The last movie that you have seen that you liked?
Oh, that's hard. I always forget them. The Triangle of Sadness.
The last song you've been listening to?
Brian Ferry, but I don't know the song.
All right. That's good. That was the end of the rapid fire round. So if there's any of the rapid fire questions that you want to elaborate in more detail, or should we move on to the longer questions? Is there anything you want to elaborate that you felt you had more to say?
What do you think is most interesting to elaborate?
No, I think it was good.
Okay.
Rapid fire is good, keep people in the mystery. So. Okay, so the long form questions. As a seasoned marketing professional with extensive experience in strategic innovation, what would you say are the key elements required to successfully drive transformation within commercial and marketing organizations?
Yeah, there are several key drivers of success. So I think it all starts with a shared ambition and urgency on things. Because why do you want to change? Transformation is not the goal in itself. So it's very good and important that you have an urgency and a real, let's say, vision on why it is necessary to do this transformation. And this has to be sent out by the leadership, of course. And then it's very much important to prove the idea of the transformation. So I always start with small scale experiments that make other people not involved jealous. And then it is much more easy to build further, to scale that up in a later state. So what you often see is that people are very much afraid of change. That's a common habit, and especially in the Netherlands, you see that when leadership makes a decision on transformation, that the discussion always starts over again, and that people want to rationalize why it's also good to do other things. So the best thing is to prove the idea of the transformation in a small scale. Have the right people on board to do that, and then scale it up. That's how I do it.
And how do you determine the urgency or the vision, as you mentioned earlier? How do you determine that it is urgent?
Yeah, that's something that people have to feel. So one of the things I often use is, I don't know if you know this S-curve model, where you say that every organism in the world, if it's a tree or an organization or a human being, has a kind of S-curve in its life. So it starts and then it grows, and then the growing is less, and then at the end of it dies, or it's like spring, summer, autumn, and winter. So I often ask people, where on this, in which season are you living? in organizations. And then when people then say, okay, we're living in autumn or in winter, then it's time to do something, of course. So there are more and more elements where you can try to find out why it is urgent to change. And it's very important. So things in life have to be important enough and urgent enough to act. And if it's urgent but not important, people won't act. And otherwise, if it's important but not urgent, people won't act as well.
What are some of the most important factors to consider when launching a successful product in today's fast-paced and competitive market?
If it really has added value for the customer, of course. So in my opinion, everything starts with creating new added value for the customer, the consumer. And for me, another question always is a kind of sanity check. Would I sell it to my mother or to my daughter? Is it a decent product? Is it something which is making the world a bit better?
But is it possible to determine completely at the beginning whether a product is sellable, or have there been instances where after a while it somehow caught traction, or,
Yeah, it's not possible to give 100% guarantee on success, but of course it's very good that you have a kind of discussion on desirability of products and feasibility of products. If there is also a kind of profitability behind it that makes it, let's say, in an economic sense, sustainable, the idea. So I don't believe in free products, for instance, because there's no such thing as a free lunch. So you have to create some value where there is enough profit potential in it that the company will keep this in the loop, of course. And that's something which sometimes is forgotten. But desirability, of course, is a product really desirable from a consumer perspective, is really one of the most important and sometimes forgotten things in product-oriented companies. They like the technology, they like the ID by themselves, but they didn't validate it in the market.
So what do you think of Apple's new virtual reality glasses?
I just had a talk about it. It's of course very upmarket, so I think it's a game changer. It's of course a toy for the boys for what is it? The price $3,500 or something like that. But it's a starting point, and I'm very curious how this will work out. But I think it's at least an interesting innovation from Apple after a few years. So I like the idea. Although I don't like the idea of sitting in a room with my family, and I saw a commercial from Apple where a father was playing with his kid with his ProVision on, and I think that's for me that's also a scary image.
Okay. So as a partner at Ernst & Young and CMO at Ernst & Young, you have undoubtedly encountered numerous challenges throughout your career. Could you share a particularly complex marketing-related problem you faced and the innovative solution that you perhaps implemented to overcome it?
First of all, it's good to mention that the name Ernst & Young, by the way, was already rebranded 10 years ago into EY, but still people talk about Ernst & Young. So you see how hard it is to change habits. And that's one of the main problems, of course, in marketing, that sometimes you have a good idea, but it's really hard to change habits of people. And this proves it, I guess. Of course, there is a wide variety of challenges we encountered. And mainly what I see is that there is a big gap between the ambition of a company, which is sometimes formulated by companies like ours or the McBees, the big strategy firms, and that there is a total gap between this ambition and the capability of an organization. So it's like saying that your ambition is to play major league, but the organization is totally not capable of doing that. And this is really a problem when companies state certain marketing strategies, and then you see that the organization is not able to be more data driven or to be more customer-centric or to be more innovative. So in many big companies, you of course see that real important capabilities like innovative power or entrepreneurial skills are scarce, and that's really a problem in closing these gaps. So our job is on the one hand to make this ambition more realistic. So saying, okay, this is not possible for you, but this is possible. And on the other hand, working on the capabilities of an organization to close this gap, so to say. And that's what we often do in teams.
So what's the usual reaction to your company telling some company that they need to be more realistic in their approach?
Yeah, that it differs. So sometimes we have to tell this to clients that they have to be more realistic, and people like it sometimes, and some big egos don't like it because they have already announced it, so they are afraid of getting this reality check. Although there are also some companies that are not ambitious enough, and we say, okay, if you want to play the game with the upcoming competition, you have to be more ambitious, and that's even a more difficult discussion. So it's easier to break than to accelerate in companies. But yeah, it's where we ask for, and you have to do that in a polite way. So being strict, and of course having the right arguments to say that, and helping them. And so what we do is not advising people, but working with people together. So the time that consultants only give an advice in a PowerPoint and say, okay, this is what you should do, good luck, is over. That's over. So nowadays we work together with our client in multidisciplinary teams together, and it's a joint decision you make. So it's not that we say you're not ambitious enough or you have too much ambition, but it's what we say together as a client. So what we always say at the end of a project, it shouldn't be our project from EY, but it should be the project of a client. They should own it, and then it's okay. But sometimes they need this outside view to make it more sharp. That's what we do.
So to pivot a little, being on the board of the Netherlands Blazers and Ensemble, how do you combine your passion for music and the arts?
Oh, if you're doing your background studies.
Yes. With your professional work in marketing and strategy?
You always have to do things that gives you new inspiration. And for me personally, is that I really like the world of art as a source for inspiration for business. So that's why I was in this board. I had to end it after 8 years. That's due to cultural governance in the Netherlands this year. So, but it was really a great time. And I really love to work with artists and other cultural people, because what they do is asking the critical questions in society. That's what good artists do. That's why also we at EY started an arts and culture fund, where we now are a main sponsor of the Dutch Film Festival and the Dutch Design Week, because we see that these young artists often ask the critical questions for making a better world. They dare to discuss the conventions in the world, and that's what artists do more than business people. But business people can learn a lot of that. And what artists also do is finding new ways, new combinations of expertise, bringing together, of combining different visions and making new images for the future. So that's why I like to be working in these kinds of boards in my spare time.
And do you do any kind of art yourself?
No, actually not yet. But you asked about my age of retirement. Maybe later. When I was young, I applied for the Dutch Design Academy. I didn't get access to that, so I went studying business administration. I'm still an art lover and a design lover, but maybe when I'm 64, I pick up art again.
Would you consider marketing and art?
Yeah. Marketing is in fact art and science. It's on the one hand scientific work on really thinking on insights based on data, based on analysis of where there are gaps in certain situations, whether it's in product portfolios or in customer experience or in brand reputation. And on the other hand, good marketing is still about art. It's finding new ways, being original, being a rebel with a cause. So doing things that are not evident.
Mm-hmm. So what is your rationale behind your statement? We picked this from the internet. Creating customer and social value automatically leads to shareholder value rather than the other way around. Could you elaborate on why you strongly believe in this perspective?
Yeah, that's already a thing I strongly believe in for many years. That I work for a lot of big companies, and what I often see is that many boards in companies always take shareholder value as the starting point and the main objective. And what my strong belief is that if you only talk about shareholder value, it won't create customer value. But if you talk about customer value, it always creates shareholder value. Because to give you an example, if you talk about shareholder value, it is easy to conclude that, for instance, you should reduce the cost of your customer service department because it could save you 10 million euros per year. That's easily found money to create more shareholder value. But on the other hand, it also reduces the customer value in a very bad way, potentially. And if you do it the other way around, if you really find ways to increase the customer value and do things that are really relevant and distinctive for your customers, I'm convinced that shareholder value will follow. That people will recognize that and think, okay, this is really a good company for clients. And shareholders are also consumers, so many shareholders also have to buy products, so they know if this is a good company.
So with over 3 decades of experience in strategic advice, what major shifts have you observed in consumer behavior and expectations over the years? And how can marketers adapt to effectively engage with today's digitally empowered consumers?
Yeah, that's... I'll make it a long story short. So, of course, in fact, what you see is that there's changed a lot, of course. 30 years ago, there was no internet, there was no email, there was no mobile phone, there were many things were not there. So it's really funny to realize myself that even in that time we already did some marketing, but it was more on product and maybe a bit on customer experience, but not really much. So what you have seen is that things like customer experience and personalization based on data has become much more important over the last 30 years and much more possible because it's also easier to design it in a digital way. It's very hard to design a customer experience for your sales force when they're all outside in the market or for people in shops. It is possible, but more difficult than to do that for digital processes. So that changed a lot, I guess. On the other hand, people are still looking for trustworthy companies for delivering the promise that companies have to do for being good. I think what comes more and more important, of course, is the item of sustainability and inclusiveness. So companies have to be much more aware on doing the good things in a good way. Yeah, let's have a look on the Budweiser case, which is actual right now in the US. It went wrong in all dimensions. So it's more difficult right now. It's a delicate game, which would change a lot. And in my opinion, marketing in that case is more and more not a department that has to convince consumers to change, but is the department that has to convince the internal organization to change. So, in fact, we have to have a vision into the company, how this company should change to become more acceptable and desired by consumers. That's much more important than pushing products to customers.
So what role do you think then data and analytics play in your decision-making process when it comes to developing new products and marketing initiatives?
It's a very important role. It's a starting point in analyzing opportunities, but data and analytics never provide you with the solution in the box. So there is, when you have the right analytic reports, then you can start being creative. So it's for me a starting point to build on your creativity.
Right, so the last question for you is of a personal kind. What would you be doing in your life if not this right now?
I always said that I probably in my next life, but otherwise maybe I would become a writer of novels, not of management books. I hate management books. There are always 600 pages and you could write them in 10 pages because it's always a lot of waste in these books.
Okay.
Thank you.
So maybe in another life I'll be interviewing you as a famous novelist.
Yeah.